So, as father of the bride, tradition says that it's my duty, I would say my honor, to say a few words to start this party off. And so I'd first like to say that I sincerely hope that these two young people soak these moments in tonight. Because how cool is it to look out into this room and see almost everyone in the world that you know and love. Believe me, it is not lost on us that there are countless places you could have chosen to be tonight. Y'all know that our family has had a few issues in the planning of these festivities. One lesson that life teaches us all over and over again is that we are not the sole arbiters of our destiny. We can't always predict the obstacles that life is going to scatter out in front of us, but we can control how we react to them. Life isn't always about waiting for the storm to pass. Sometimes it's about learning how to dance in the rain. It is my hope that as you leave this room at the end of the night, you will say to yourself that tonight, at this time, in this place, the Sinkhorns and the Denmans turn lemons into lemonade. And on behalf of the honored couple, my wife Mary and myself, I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the sacrifices y'all have made to share this evening with us. You know, I so wish that a musical soundtrack would always follow me around. You know, it's been said that children are the hands by which we take hold of heaven. Well, 25 years ago, Tracy fell from heaven, and I was the lucky dad who got to catch her. You could probably say I started to write this speech the moment the OB nurse handed Tracy to me. All I wanted to do was hold on tight forever. But daddies have to walk a very fine line of holding on just tight enough to guide while releasing enough to let them find their own way. I knew that I could walk the road with Tracy, but I couldn't walk it for her. You know, Tracy wasn't afraid to take her first steps because she knew I'd be there if she skinned her knees. As she got older, she fearlessly rode up top my shoulders because she knew I wouldn't drop her. She rarely woke up as I transferred her from car seat to bed because Daddy's arms were the safest place on earth. Oh, it was easy to be Tracy's hero back then. All I had to do was kill spiders and chase imaginary monsters from her room. But I can still remember very clearly Tracy's first serious reach for independence. She was just 3 years old. 3 years old. But she had noticed that Daddy didn't really hold her older sister's hands much anymore. And she informed me that, by golly, she didn't need me to hold hers either. Not long after that, on a beautiful day along the Naperville Riverwalk, as the light turned green and our family started to walk across the very busy, crowded street, without a word, Tracy reached up and silently took my hand. When we got to the other side, I gently questioned her, "Honey, I thought you don't need to hold Daddy's hand anymore." She looked up at me, and in what should have been a 3-year-old's very limited vocabulary, she said, "Only when I feel threatened." And yes, I teared up then, just as I do now. Because even at that tender age, Tracy was already starting to recognize the tightrope her father was walking, and that my most important job as her daddy was to put myself out of a job. Tracy, I started out by carrying you, and then I walked beside you and held your hand. But when the time was right, I walked behind you so that you could shine. Today I had to turn around and let go of your hand. But you didn't walk down that aisle away from me. You walked into the rest of your life. Honey, my race is almost run now. But if I did my job right, then the future is yours. You know something, folks? I am not an overly religious man. But every morning, for as long as I can remember, I have stopped to pray. In those private moments, I very rarely ask God for anything. I prefer to use my limited time with Him to thank Him for all the blessings that I already have. But on the night that Tracy was born, I made a very rare exception. Of course, first I thanked God for my daughter, the little miracle that He was allowing me to borrow for just a little while. But I also knew that at that moment, or very soon thereafter, somewhere in the world, there was a little baby boy who would one day grow up to be the man who would stand beside my daughter on this day. On that night, so very long ago, I asked God to protect that little boy and to light his path so that it would cross into Tracy's life when the time was right. Of course, for all these years, I never knew who that little boy was. But a little earlier, as the doors to that ceremony opened, and Tracy reached for my arm and asked me to take her on the most important walk of her life, why it suddenly occurred to me that we were just walking down the very last part of an aisle she had always been on. I looked to the front of the room at the man who has stolen her heart, and it looked to me like he had been standing at the end of that very same aisle all his life, proudly and patiently, waiting for his bride. When Tracy and I were about halfway down the aisle, Clayton's eyes met mine for just a moment. And folks, I'm here to tell you that it was in that moment that I heard God whisper in my ear, "Scott, this is the man you asked me for." And so here we are tonight. Clayton, if Tracy is the answer to your prayers, then you, son, are the answer to mine. But always remember, don't ever take lightly the responsibility that you have accepted today. Because as you take her hand, you take part of my life. Tracy, once upon a time, I was your hero. But tonight I toast, we all toast, to the hope that Clayton will be your hero now and until the end of your days. Godspeed, Mr. and Mrs. Denman.